Minshew Mania makes his QB1 performance for the Philadelphia Eagles, and boy did it look good as the Eagles defeated the Detroit Lions 33-18. The Sixers have turned things around on a 3-game winning streak, and the Flyers, they have fired head coach Elaine Vijolt. All that coming to you on Sports Talk Philadelphia. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sports Talk Philadelphia. I'm your host, Kale Flieger. I'm joined by the panelists of this episode, Aiden Tusinski. How you doing?
Much better than last week, I'll say that.
We have Tyler Small back for another episode. Tyler?
Minshew Mania, man. How can you not love it?
And Mike Holland, you're probably happy after that Eagles performance.
Oh, yeah, very happy.
Well, the Philadelphia Eagles, they did defeat the Detroit Lions 33-18 this past Sunday. Jalen Hurts was ruled out the day before the game with an ankle injury that he did suffer against the New York Giants. But Gardner Minshew made his starting debut for the Philadelphia Eagles, and it did look good as he was 20 for 25, 242 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Miles Sanders, 24 carries, that's a career high for him, and 120 yards rushing. And Dallas Goedert, probably arguably his best performance as an Eagle, 6 catches, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. Both of those touchdowns coming in the first half for Dallas Goedert. So the overall offense just looked very stellar for another bounce-back performance. And the Eagles get back in the win column heading into this bye week. And I just want to open up for you guys. How important was it for the Eagles offense to get back on track before going into this bye week, just for their overall confidence?
I think it was absolutely huge. Obviously, you have a lot of division games coming up at the end of the season. You've got to get everything figured out now. The Eagles did that. I mean, Miles Sanders with 120 yards. He's the first Eagle this year to get over 100 yards carrying the football, which I think is pretty impressive considering that for a while he just wasn't getting the ball at all. And Dallas Goedert we talked about this last week where the tight ends were just not involved with this offense at all. So for Goedert to put up the numbers he did, it just makes me feel much more confident about the way that the Eagles offense is going into these last few weeks of the season.
I can't harp on that enough. I mean, it's so funny to look back at what Miles Sanders left in this offense before he got hurt, and then when he comes back to the top rushing offense in football, maybe not after the Patriots game. But he's been incredible, and it was crazy to think that we were even worried about him joining back in with like Boston Scott, Jordan Howard. They were such a good duo. But the same way in the passing game, whenever you have a quarterback coming in, whether it's the backup stepping up or you have Jalen Hurts you're trying to develop, it's so key to give him those outs with the tight end. And Dallas Goedert, not only was he a red zone threat, but he was ready for him. Because as we know, Gardner Minshew is a playmaker, and he's always trying to extend plays. And once you have a capable tight end or a top-tier tight end like you have in Dallas Goedert, the results are as shows, and a 2-touchdown game was huge getting over the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, I know nobody wants to really talk about, and a quarterback debate again. I don't want to talk about one, but, I mean, he had 137.7 QB rating. It's the highest since Foles had in the NFC Championship game. I mean, he spread the ball. He was effective. Hurts, he was good before that Giants game, but he did struggle that Giants game. And, I'm still riding with Hurts, but, you got to talk about Minshew because that was a good performance. It was against the Jets, but, that was his first time getting with those first-team reps all season. I mean, he joined training. He wasn't in training camp with the Eagles. So, I was impressed. And, Sirianni stuck with, running the ball, even though Sanders was struggling until he broke off that 30-yard run. But, I liked what I saw, and, we'll see after the bye week how they respond.
Yeah, I do want to give a shout-out to Howie Roseman. I know he does get a lot of flack, but that was a great acquisition in getting Gardner Minshew through trade. I mean, a 6th-round pick for a backup like him who I believe should be a starter somewhere in the NFL next year is pretty good. And you can see throughout the past few years, the Eagles' backup QB situation has been very well. And you got to think, if the Eagles went into this game this past Sunday with Joe Flacco as their backup quarterback, things could have been a lot different. So Minshew did a great job filling in for Jalen Hurts and getting the Eagles back in the win column. I do want to talk about the defense a little bit. They did allow just 18 points to the Jets, most of those points coming in the first half of that game. They did have a rocky first half. They only had 2 sacks in the game, which was kind of disappointing, saying that Zach Wilson has had a lot of mistakes when he's been pressured this season. And Marcus Epps, he did 2 tackles, but he did have a big interception in the second half that pretty much sealed the game for the Philadelphia Eagles. Just want to open up to you guys. Where do you think the defensive performance was this Sunday? I know I personally was a little disappointed by that first half. I thought they should have gave a little more pressure towards Zach Wilson, especially because he has made a lot of those rookie mistakes this season. So I thought he would have threw a little more interceptions, but in that first half, he did look very impressive.
Yeah, he definitely did, and it was very surprising that the Eagles' defense did not make him have more turnovers than he did, just the one interception. The biggest thing, again, is just how this defensive line has improved. They only allowed 70 rushing yards today, on Sunday. Obviously, they didn't get any sacks, but just the fact that they're stopping the run game, this is exactly what they did in 2017. Stop the run, force the quarterback to make late passes, try to force those later turnovers and seal the game. If you can do that, then the Eagles are set up to make a good playoff run.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, the equivalent of playing the Jets in this offense with Zach Wilson is like in baseball going to Coors Field. You're hoping to have your numbers bump up a little bit. It's a stat pattern game because Zach Wilson this year has had a lot of rookie blunders, a lot of dud plays for him. So you're hoping to pick up some of the numbers like that. And when you look at the pressure, I thought that the Jets really blocked well against the Eagles, but they did have 6 pressures. Like they were forcing him out of the pocket. They were leading run first, as you said. And I thought the only interception that we did see in this game really wasn't a fault of Wilson at all. It was just kind of reading the rookie eyes of the quarterback. He telegraphed the pass a little bit too long on the comeback route, and sure enough, it was the Eagles making a big play in the second half. And I think that shows more about what the defense can do as opposed to what Zach Wilson did.
Yeah, I mean, those first 3 drives are terrible. You know, I was down at that game, and I was so close to running down from the nosebleeds and coaching that defense myself. I mean, you know, it was bad. I mean, they made Zach Wilson look pretty good, you know, in that first half. But they did settle down. It was definitely their worst tackling game on the season. They've been good all year, especially T.J. Edwards. But, you know, I think having such a late bye kind of played into a factor, too. So it'll be good to, you know, get that rest this week and rest up for Washington.
Yeah, it was a great victory for the Eagles. It is the New York Jets, but a win's a win, and the Eagles just have to play who's on their schedule. So it's great to bounce back in the win column. We are going to jump to NFC East standings right now. The Cowboys, they acquired a win this past week. They're 8-4 now. Washington 6-6. The Eagles in third place at 6-7, and the Giants at 4-8. The Eagles do go into a bye week this week, a much-needed bye week, as a lot of their key players are banged up right now. You have Jason Kelce, who suffered a knee injury. Miles Sanders tweaked his ankle again. And Jordan Howard still out with that knee sprain. So a very timely time for this bye week for the Eagles to rest up and go into this last stretch of games, going for a playoff push. The Eagles right now are currently a game out of the wild card spot. They are behind the Washington football team, who currently have the 7th and final wild card spot. The Eagles, after this bye week, have Washington. So do you guys expect the Eagles, do you think we will end up getting a wild card spot?
At this point, I'm going to go with no, just because I did pick Washington winning the division. At this point, they've played much better than they did earlier this year. I don't see the Eagles winning both these games. I think it's going to go 1-1, and at that point, I don't think that's good enough for the Eagles to make the playoffs.
Yeah, the only way it's going to happen is if you take care of Washington, obviously, because Dallas is long gone. So you might as well root for them next week, because right now, Washington is on the longest winning streak in the NFL. They've won, I believe, 4 straight. And they have just been completely rolling. Their defense has looked better without Chase Young. I mean, we were talking about Antonio Gibson, the same thing. I like to talk about J.D. McKissick and how he can do it out of the backfield. And I think that'll give the Eagles a lot of trouble. I don't think that the playoffs are a picture for them this year, and I'm just going similar to what Aiden just said. It's going back to my take that I thought that this was going to be more of a development year for this team. But the fact that you're kind of in and off year, signing-wise and player-wise, and you're still competitive for this expanded playoffs, that's a good sign for the future, especially for the young core of this team.
Yeah, I mean, they control their own destiny. Now, whatever happens in those Washington games, I don't even want to think about if Hurts plays bad, because those last 3 weeks are just going to be like a carousel of Minshew or Hurts. So, you know, we'll see what happens, but they're controlling their own destiny.
Yeah, the Eagles do control their own destiny, as they are in a bye week this week. But after the bye week, they have a crucial game, an NFC East game, against the Washington football team. As Tyler said, they are on a 4-game winning streak. Washington 6-6 on the season. They are second in the NFC East, but they do have a couple big threats on the offensive end, as Antonio Gibson, who has 800 rushing yards this season, that leads the whole entire NFC conference. You also have Terry McLaurin, who's a wide receiver for the Washington football team, and he's also a very impressive wideout, 800 yards also receiving this year. But Washington, they do have a shaky quarterback in Taylor Heineke. He hasn't shown signs of improvement throughout this season, but I also don't think he is a true QB1. Real quick, Aiden, what do we think are the keys to getting a victory this Sunday, and bouncing in front of Washington in the standings.
I think the biggest thing that I want to see is the offense play really well. Obviously, Washington has had a couple really good defensive players. If the offense can really step it up the way they played against the Jets, I think that would be so big for them.
We'll go around real quick. Mike, score prediction.
21-13 Washington.
Tyler.
I think it's going to be 24-10. I think the defense holds true.
I'm going 21-17 Washington.
I go 21-14 Eagles. They are at the link, and I think the Eagles are going to pick up their first win of the NFC East season. So now we're going to bounce to the Sixers, as they are bouncing back after last week's show where they were 3-7 in their past 10. They have bounced back and won 3 games in a row. They beat the Hawks 98-96, the Hornets 127-124 in overtime, and the Hornets again back-to-back nights 110-106. Very close games for the Sixers. I mean, they could have went either way, but they did pull out the victory, as they need these victories. They're very much needed, as Joel Embiid has stepped up since he came back from COVID. He is now in the past 3 games averaged 34.5 points per game, getting back to his MVP form. So pretty much we'll open it up. How impressive has Embiid been coming back in these past 3 games after he did have a little rocky start coming back after COVID, but now we can see he's the true Embiid again.
No, absolutely, and especially that one Hornets game in overtime. I don't think we win that game if Embiid doesn't play. Obviously, he put up 43 points, which is so massive for them, but he was also such a big key late in the game, and we were just talking last week that the Sixers might not have a closer. Well, if Embiid plays the way he is now, we don't necessarily have to get another piece. We can rely on him, another big piece. I think the Sixers should still try and get someone else if they can, but I don't think you need that massive MVP if Embiid keeps playing the way he is right now.
It's just been impressive to see, not only for Embiid, but just the entire team. After all the Ben Simmons drama, of course, you get into this last Hornets game where it was finally the projected starting 5 actually playing together. It's been such a crazy start for this season, but you mentioned it. Embiid, now that he has the ability to play without the clogging of the lanes that I say every week on this show that Ben Simmons provides because of him being such a big point guard, I think that he is going to light it up this year. I think the same way that you are going to have these players that stepped up in all the COVID absences and just the overall injuries to begin. I mean, the Shake Miltons of the world, Seth Curry of the world, they can really take another step now that there's going to be defensive pressure going inside, giving them opportunities to score.
Yeah, I mean, the scary thing with Embiid is he's not even close to 100%. You know, he's still dealing with, those COVID issues that he was dealing with. That's what he said. But the thing with him, I'm kind of worried that he's just going to be worn down. He's just doing so much, and he needs help. I mean, we need to do something with this trade. I kind of disagree with you, and I think we do kind of need someone else, not an MVP, but just, someone else, a shot creator who can, at the end of the games, be that guy, because Tobias Harris, to me, isn't living up to that $180 million contract whatsoever at all. So they need another guy who can just help Embiid, and that will, in my eyes, make them contenders.
Yeah, Embiid has been impressive. Embiid has been impressive, but even Danny Green said after the last game that Embiid is the most skilled big man that he has played with in his career, and that's a pretty high remark, saying that he played with Tim Duncan back in his early days. So a great compliment coming out of Danny Green for Joel Embiid. News coming out that apparently Damian Lillard wants to play with Ben Simmons, who currently still has not reported for the Philadelphia 76ers. Lillard wants to play with Ben Simmons. The 76ers do not want to trade Ben Simmons unless they get a star. We saw many trade packages seeing that maybe the Sixers could land C.J. McCollum, who went to Lehigh University around our area. Also a young player piece like Alferny Simmons or Nasir Little, and also a first-round pick. So like Mike was saying earlier, I think all of us believe that the Sixers don't need another MVP necessarily, but also having a shot creator like C.J. McCollum coming into your lineup could be a big piece for what the Sixers need to make a finals run this year.
Yeah, no, it'd be interesting to see if the Sixers can do that. I'm also interested to see what Lillard's feelings is on the Trailblazers. Obviously, he spent his whole career there. I think he would want to retire there, but it seems like that they've been more mismanaged than the Sixers have, which is kind of surprising this year, seeing how much we've messed up a lot of our players. But I do think that if the Sixers can get that possibility, we shouldn't wait to do it, especially because the playoff limit is so small. Embiid's career, obviously with all of his injuries and stuff, could be shorter than most star players. So if you can get that piece, go do it right now.
Yeah, obviously. And that's the problem that comes when there's so little push on the opposite end for Ben Simmons. I mean, he's just racking up the fines right now and kind of okay with it because he's probably making so much money in endorsements to pay right off. But once you look at this team, obviously, I think C.J. McCollum will be a perfect fit for them because he hasn't really been the primary ball handler in Portland because Damian Lillard is so skilled with the ball in his hands. So if he were to take that role, I think that he would flourish similar to how we saw James Harden when he went to the Nets. A scoring threat through and through that kind of takes a back step and will facilitate for the big man inside or Tobias Harris, like we've mentioned. I think he would be an awesome addition alongside kind of giving some more depth.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a CJ deal on the table, you got to take it for sure. And, like a Simmons or a Rocco, too, for a Ben, and I would even throw in Shake, too. So I think CJ will be perfect, and I think if they can get him, that will put them in title contention.
We are going to jump to the Eastern Conference standings real quick. The Sixers, last week on this show, they were in 11th place in the Eastern Conference standings. Now, after a week on that 3-game winning streak, they jumped to 6th in the Eastern Conference standings. Major improvements just in this past week for the Sixers. Obviously, it's nice to be back in the middle pack of the Eastern Conference. Is there any shot, I know the All-Star break is a little ways away, but is there any shot that you guys believe that the Sixers could get a top 3 spot by the All-Star break?
I just don't see it, unfortunately. I feel like that with the players, the teams that are up there right now, especially the Bucks, have been playing a lot better than they were at the beginning of the year, and then you have the Nets in front of them and the Bulls. I just don't see it at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be a tall road for the Sixers to go on to be in that top 3, but that's all we have for the Sixers this week. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with Flyers right after this.
I just missed the shuttle.
You never hit record!
I never hit record. I just got an F on my exam.
Is that you? Do you sit around bored all day? Do you want to watch television shows where you can look at the people and be like, I can be that. That's me. Well, you should check out LaSalle TV. That rhymes. We got entertainment news at Backstage Pass. We got regular news at LTV News. We got sports news at Sports Talk and Sports Line. And for those of you who really want some fun stuff, Q&A. Because down at LaSalle TV, we got a full buffet.
Thanks, LaSalle TV.
Thanks, LaSalle TV. Thanks, LaSalle TV. I still miss my shuttle.
And we're back to talk some Philadelphia Flyers after it's been another disappointing week for the Flyers as they have officially fired head coach Alain Vigneault after 2.5 disappointing seasons as head coach for the Philadelphia Flyers. His all-time record was 74, 54, and 19 with the Flyers. He did have an impressive first season with the Flyers, but ever since that season, it did go downhill. The Flyers, they are currently on a 10-game losing streak. Not very good at all. Captain Claude Giroux did have some remarks after the head coach did get fired. He said, we don't have an identity right now. And that is something that if you are the Flyers, you need to be a playoff team. So what is your guys' reaction to the overall Flyers firing?
At this point, I just feel like AV, it's so weird that they fired him at this point in the season because they've been struggling anyway. And it doesn't seem like they ever go into like a full rebuilding process. They kind of just like win as many games as they can. And if they miss the playoffs, too bad. They've never really gone into a process of completely dismantling the team, but they've never won enough to say that you should keep these guys around. So I really don't know how the Flyers feel, and I think the players are agreeing with that sentiment as well.
Exactly, and I think in my mind, it is a perfect example of what you just said. It's a top-down scapegoat, where it's just we are in the middle of this horrific losing streak. We're making headlines for the wrong reasons right now. We need somebody to pass the blame on so that if it does turn around, because I mean, there's no way they could, even though it looks like they could right now, there's no way they can lose out the rest of the year. So as soon as it turns around, they can kind of pin it on AV. They put in somebody in-house that the team does like in Yo. So we'll see what comes from it, but there's no reason.
I do, my bad, I do want to welcome Siobhan Nolan onto the panel. I forgot to do that after the Flyers. But we have Siobhan. Siobhan, what has been your reaction to, I know you were on last week and you were very disappointed with how the Flyers were performing. What is your reaction? I don't think any of us were expecting the head coach to get fired next week.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird time to fire the head coach, and I think that a lot of people have the misconception that the blame is either on the head coach completely or on the players completely, and it's definitely kind of a PR move to be like, oh, look, we're taking steps to better the team by firing the head coach, but even though AV is obviously partially to blame, because he is the head coach, I do think a lot of the responsibility falls on the players more, and I don't know how much responsibility they're going to take for it, because Claude Giroux is saying they don't have an identity, kind of stating the obvious, but at the end of the day, what do those words do to actually improve a 10-game losing streak?
Yeah, the Flyers' current interim head coach is Mike Yeo. Yeo has been a part of the Philadelphia Flyers since 2019. His career record is 246, 183, and 55 ties. Obviously, they're staying in the organization for an interim so far, but there is a multitude of options and different paths the Flyers can go in this direction. What do you guys think is the area that the Flyers will go, and do you think that there's going to be a head coaching hire in the near future, or do you think they're going to wait after the season?
I think they're going to wait for the future, but at this point, I don't think Mike Yeo's the answer. His last head coaching job was with the Blues in 2018. He literally got fired pretty much 16 games of the season. Right after that, the Blues went on a hot streak and ended up winning the championship, which I don't think they would have done under him. And basically everything that was talked badly about him with the Blues was also talked badly about him when he was the coach at Minnesota. So it seems like that no player that's ever really played for him as a head coach has really liked playing for him. And there's been so much contention for the players when he's been head coaches at other places. So I don't think that the Flyers should keep him at all at this point.
Yeah, and I don't think they actually will. And I think that I've seen a lot of names kind of thrown around. The one that keeps reoccurring that I think is the worst fit for them is Trotz, somebody that got fired for he's a brilliant mind when it comes to the X's and O's of line shifts and whatnot. But when you look at this guy, he got kicked out of town because he was too much of a hard-out. And that's the last thing that this Flyers team needs. There's no need to be disciplining a team when they're already on a 10-game losing streak, doing it as professionals. They're not college kids anymore. I don't think that's the right fit.
And Aiden, like you said, Mike Yeo is not the answer, but at the end of the day, when this team doesn't have an identity, it's like, how do you know what head coach they need if they don't even know who they are or what they want to be? Because it's been like that for the past few seasons, so they're making it very difficult for themselves to get a head coach because they don't even know what kind of team they want to be.
Yeah, the Flyers, we'll jump to the standings in the Metropolitan Division. The Flyers still are in 7th place. They are on a 10-game losing streak. They're 8, 11, and 4 on the season. I'm not sure if this is going to be able to be fixed this season. What do you guys think? Do you guys think this season's already wrapped up, or do you think they can bounce back from this?
Yeah, my first response to that, thank you to the New York Islanders for having an 11-game losing streak recently, or else we would be talking about way more. At this point, I think that this season's a lost cause, but I don't know what exactly process you can go into because you still have so many veterans, so many young guys. You're either going to have to commit to one, either try to get more older guys and try to win, which I don't think they should do, or try tanking, which I think they could do, but I just think that we're too far into the season. Even though it's so early, I think you just got to play out this season and figure out what you want to do at the end of this year.
I think it's a trade anyone for value sort of situation. I think you kick off the tanking right now. They're nearly doubled by the Capitals in points right now. They have to take a step back and realize that it's kind of what they were doing last year with Jacob Voracek leaving. They just got to start saying goodbye to people that they love.
Yeah, the Flyers have been a big disappointment this year, and hopefully after the firing of the head coach, they can find some groove to get fans back engaged with the team and try to pick up a few wins after it's been a long 10 games for the Flyers. We are now going to jump into Fast 5. We're going to start with This Week in College Basketball with Aiden Tucinci.
All right, so This Week in College Basketball, I'm going to project the biggest game so far of the weekend. Number 2 Baylor versus number 6 Villanova. Both these teams have been on fire. Nova's 2 losses have been to 2 ranked teams, number 2 UCLA and now number 1 Purdue. So clearly they are a very hot team. Baylor has not really had too tough a schedule. This will definitely be their hardest opponent of the year. I really like Baylor. I projected them a couple weeks ago to be the winner of the NCAA tournament. I think that if they can beat Nova, make a big statement right now, it will show the college basketball world that this team is one to be reckoned with.
Completely agree, Aiden. Next, we're going to jump to Tyler, best NFL team through 13 weeks.
I know that everyone's kind of giving a lot of love to the Patriots right now, taking back the AFC East. But I still have to stay in the NFC with a team. I still think it's the Packers. I think that this team has been very discombobulated throughout the majority of the season, but they just have a different edge to them this year that only the Packers seem to have. The Aaron Rodgers, Vontae Adams connection will always be there, but I think defensively, this is one of the best defensive teams in football right now, and I think they're going to continue to flourish as the months get colder.
Next, we're going to jump to Siobhan, NHL MVP so far through this young season.
I almost want to give it to Trevor Zegras just for that goal that he had this week. That was incredible, especially for someone so young. I think it's going to be Connor McDavid again. I know that that's a basic answer, but that man just knows how to play hockey so well. He's doing amazing for the Oilers right now, so I think it's going to be another McDavid-dominated season.
We do have the college football playoffs this week, which is always an interesting time of the year for college football fans. This year, we have Alabama versus Cincinnati, and then we have Georgia versus Michigan, two high-key matchups. Aiden and Tyler, you want to break down both those matchups for us?
Yeah. So I'll break down the first one. Since number 1, Alabama versus number 4, Cincinnati. Look, I understand that Alabama was the winner last year. They have the Heisman Trophy winner probably in Bryce Young. I love this Cincinnati team. I've been rooting for them all year. I understand that people are underestimating them, saying that they're in a weaker conference in the All-American Conference, which is outside the Power 5. Luke Fickell could have left to go to Notre Dame right now. He stayed because he understands that this is Cincinnati's time to win a national championship. I think they beat Alabama. I don't know if they'll beat Georgia or Michigan, but I have confidence in them winning this game.
And then when you look at Michigan, Georgia, Georgia falls, but they only have one loss this season. They've been incredible throughout, but I think it's going to go to Michigan. I mean, Cole McNamara has been incredible this year, finally getting over the hump of Ohio State. Hassan Haskins, the running back, has been crucial over the year, having a 1,000-yard rushing season. And I just don't think Stetson Bennett's such a great story. He's better for this offense right now over JT Daniels, but I don't think it's going to do it this week.
And the last question we're going to jump to is the Detroit Lions picked up their first victory of the season over the Minnesota Vikings, a great division matchup. The Detroit Lions, they did defeat the Vikings 29-27. Jared Goff was very impressive as he had 296 yards and 3 touchdowns, arguably his best game since he left the Los Angeles Rams. The Lions, they fought all game. They were pretty much up the whole entire game until it came down to about 4 seconds on the clock left. They were at a I think it was 4th and 10 or something like that. They had 20 yards to go, and Jared Goff threw a touchdown pass with 0 seconds on the clock to gain the Lions their first victory of the season. This victory came in a time where a lot of turmoil in the Michigan community after the Oxford high school shooting. So we want to send prayers out to Michigan, and also that was a great victory to uplift that community in a time of need currently. It also was a first win for head coach Dan Campbell, who has fought through this Detroit team lineup as, even though they don't have the most impressive talent on this team, they have been competitive in many of these games as they lost to a lot of teams by field goal, and a lot of teams were very impressive seasons, one of them being the Baltimore Ravens. They stuck through with them through a hard-fought game. So congratulate the Detroit Lions on gaining your first win, and probably a lot of Detroit fans are excited about that. That's all we have for Fast 5, and that's all we have for Sports Talk Philadelphia. It's been a great semester talking Philadelphia sports with you guys. And we also make sure you follow our social media on Twitter and Instagram at Sports Talk LTV. I want to thank you guys for watching us for another semester of Sports Talk LTV. And we'll be back with you after the holidays. And we all want to wish you guys a happy holiday and have a great Christmas. Thank you.